Back at the Roundhouse this week, a lot of attention is still focused on the so-called red flag bill. This measure would allow a judge to take away a person's firearm if they are determined to be an imminent threat to themselves or others. The measure already passed the full Senate, is flying through the House this week, but not without a lot of gnashing of teeth, especially by Republican lawmakers. They've expressed frustration with how they perceive the bill as being rushed through the legislative process. Joining us this week to discuss those concerns, our line panelists, starting with regular and local attorney Sophie Martin. Another regular back with us this week is Tom Garrity of the Garrity Group PR. Giovanna Rossi is also with us this week. She's president and owner of Collective Action Strategies and hosts the Well Woman Show on KUNM Radio. And we welcome back Ed Perea. He's a lawyer and public safety analyst. Great to have you all here this week. Now, this bill, Senate Bill 5, an emotionally charged proposal supporters say is an effective tool to prevent violence and even suicides, but opponents see it as a violation of the Second Amendment. Pure and simple. And 30 of the 33 sheriffs have already come out against it, but the idea of the bill is only part of the controversy. Also at issue is how the measure has been handled by the legislature. It passed through the Senate last week, but was given only one committee assignment in the House and appears to be on the fast track to becoming law. And Sophie, as we tape this, we know that it is on the docket for the House floor today. Later today, that could mean tonight. Who knows when.
So you may be watching this and like, yeah, this is already done.
That's exactly right. Thank you for that. And House Speaker Brian Eagleholdy assigned the bill to the Public Affairs Committee, not Judiciary, because he says the House passed the bill last year. I'm interested in that particular point about Judiciary not having a cut at this, even though there are lots of amendments that make it far different from the bill last year. What's your sense of that?
There are amendments that have been made, and some of them seem fairly significant, but I think that the decision to only refer to one bill to one committee, really reflects confidence on the part of the Democratic House members, Democratic leadership, that it will go through. I mean, I think, and that they want it to. I mean, typically the kind of games we see if you don't want a bill to go through is that you assign it to many, many committees. Right. But here, time is short. There appears to be some consensus that the House will vote to approve this. Damon Ely, for instance, has come out and said he thinks that it's going to pass through quickly and that there's not going to be a lot of concern, at least on the Democratic side, about trying to make additional changes. I mean, I think he said we expect it to pass as is so that there doesn't need to be reconciliation. So all of that is to say we have had some surprises from the legislature this year. The conventional wisdom was that cannabis would go through, and it's been tabled, was that the Social Security, releasing the tax on Social Security would go through. That hasn't happened. But at least at this point, there sounds like there's a lot of confidence that this red flag bill is a go.
Tom, is there a trade here? I'm wondering. I hear Sophie's point, and a lot of folks would agree with that if they were on the side of passing this law. But something seems to have come up a little bit short for folks who were opposed to this. I'm thinking particularly of public testimony was rather limited. It just didn't feel like a full and unfettered hearing for this thing has happened to this so far.
Yeah, it definitely appears that the Senate, at least when the bill was over in the Senate and being heard first at Public Affairs and then primarily Public Affairs when it was introduced, they used the entire Senate chamber for people to provide that feedback, provide input. And it seems as if that was like the two bites of the apple were over in the Senate. Once it moved over into the House, it was like, you know what, our focus is getting this done. And as a result, I think it was at the expense of public input. And that is the one great challenge that the legislators have in a 30-day session. How do you provide input through the committee process, through also by providing a true debate amongst Republicans and Democrats on the bill. But instead, what we've seen, instead of a couple of committees, including Judiciary, we just had one, and it was basically now being brought to the floor. And so I think that's, it's more of a sign of partisanship as opposed to making sure that the best bill gets through the legislature.
Ed, I'm curious your thought on this. Again, a lot of issues at stake here, and I'm going to take the side here for devil's advocate for the sheriffs. It just seems to me the sheriffs just didn't get a fair, full hearing here. It just didn't feel in my gut that they were really heard here. Maybe on purpose, who knows? But
Yeah, I agree with Tom. This bill is looking more partisan like. And this, it can't be partisan. This is such an important issue. And I get it. I understand the need to do something about the violence and these mass shootings that we've seen across the country and even in some of our local neighborhoods. But we want to be careful that we don't put the cart before the horse. I mean, we want to make sure we take our time and think this thing through. There are a lot of gaps still that remain as far as the bill is concerned, some safeguards that need to be put in place. Because we really can't play around with our Constitution. I mean, there is a Second Amendment right, and I get it. But there's some things that maybe we can do to ensure that the Second Amendment is protected. And the same token, come up with some reasonable laws that are going to increase the safety of our community. I don't think the bill in its present form is there yet. I think there has to be a little more thought that goes into it. I mean, there's some liability issues. A judge can make a decision, remove a gun. The courts and the judges are immune from liability. Law enforcement isn't. So how is law enforcement going to approach these situations where they know if they make the wrong decision, they may be liable for damages? And so that's going to really...
Can that really be hashed out on a floor hearing on the House side today? I mean, that liability issue seems like a very important deal for a lot of people. I can see the ramifications of sheriffs going, you know what, I'm just not going to touch this thing.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It just seems obvious if they're going to be liable.
Liability is one piece, but there are other issues there that really need to be thought through. You know, currently, most law enforcement officers already have tools to deal with these types of situations. Often, if they're on site and they're dealing with a potentially dangerous situation involving a firearm or someone who is threatening the use of the firearm, in some cases, that firearm can already be removed by the law enforcement at that moment and put into safekeeping just to protect that individual. So law enforcement officers have been doing this for years, for decades, and handling it differently without the law. But once you put a law in place, you want to be, again, very careful and make sure that there are clear safeguards in place. So much more to talk about on this issue, because I'm not even sure that there's a strong correlation between this red flag bill and the potential violence. I'd like to see more study on that.
Gotcha. Giovanna, 17 states, including the District of Columbia, have passed red flag laws. Polling here in New Mexico are very firmly in favor of red flag laws. So at the end of the day, does the process stuff really matter if this is really, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, listening to the comments, it's like, you know, we want to create a good public policy, you know, and at the same time, we have seen this bill in 17 other states and DC, and we've seen bipartisan support in other states. So the idea that this is just a partisan issue is really unique to New Mexico, because we've seen bipartisan support in other areas. So I don't think that we need to worry so much about waiting and taking more time and all of that. We've taken a lot of time already, and we've seen more and more gun violence. Now, is this bill the answer to gun violence? No, right? It's making a statement. It's making maybe a difference. But for sure, it's making a statement about, you know, the need to do something. I think there are deeper issues, as was brought up, and those issues really need to be looked at. So, you know, we can look at this kind of Band-Aid approach that is very controversial, or we could do something really bold and look at some of the root causes of gun violence and look at who are the people that are doing this, and what are their needs, and what's going on here?
That was a big missing part of the debate, it seemed to me as well, is that you could see people hinting at that or trying to get that into the conversation, that if you really want to make this really work, you got to make it much more holistic and bring in the mental health help issues into this. And
so there is
it's
that.
Not just
yeah,
a red
there
flag
is
law.
that, but they're starting somewhere, right? We need to do something to kind of make a statement to make people feel like this is important. And so I think for a lot of people, it's, you know, whether or not it does exactly what it needs to do, it's making a statement that people really need to see in terms of addressing gun violence.
Interesting. Just for perspective, we did have background checks passed recently. It went into effect. The world didn't fall apart. The hole didn't open up in the ground. We didn't fall in it. It seemed to have been okay. We'll see what happens with this, especially in the House. That's all the time we have for that topic. Still to come on the line, we dive into proposed changes within the Children, Youth, and Families Department